Oh, very good evening to one and all present here today. Thank you so much, VAs, for giving me this opportunity to interact with the crowd out here. And I presume that I will be able to do justice to the topic which has which is so relevant in today's time, and specifically during this part of the year. How do we go about acing the interview skills? Um, I think I'm very glad to be part of this entire, journey where the entire organization talks about inclusivity. It talks about diversity, having more women in the leadership team, and that's what has been the motive. And we want more and more women to come up and be a part of it. Today, I will be, sharing my experiences. And before I do that, let me, quickly give my brief introduction to you. I am Dr. Rashmi, and I head the Department of Business and Management at Christ University in Bangalore. And I have been in this journey for about 23 years now. So I have been seeing students passing out every year with a dilemma on the face whether I should be, clearing my interview. What are the few tips that I need to take on? And there are so many times that we have sat with the students, we have tried to tell them that what are the few things that you should be able to take care of, what are the few things that you should be very careful of. And I would presume to be a very open forum. Please do not hesitate to ask questions. Let me see how we can be more interactive in the entire course. And probably I would like to share some of my interesting experiences that I have been you know facing or seeing along with my students, specifically because I have been a part of their journey with the graduate students and the undergrad students. So that's the beauty of the entire thing. Now, if I talk about the interview process, there are multiple things that goes into it. Why do we think that it is so important? So when I was trying to figure out what could I take it up for the crowd out here, I thought that maybe just going and talking specifically about the interviews would not be enough justice. Interview is a process, selection is a process, right? So we start from the start of resume building to the GD group discussions to the typical interview process to psychometric testing and many other things. So it all depends from the journey that you have started from. So if I'm a fresher, probably I would pay attention to many multiple things like maybe giving a logical reasoning test, which a lot of interviewers do that. But the first process is, of course, sending a resume, clearing that exam, and then going up for a GD, and then going for the interview process, and then going for the HR round. So this is a typical process which has been followed for freshers, at least. And when you have some few years of experience, at that point of time, most of the organizations would say that, okay, we can skip the first line, that is the entrance test, and more probably we can go for a GD. But GD has been a very common phenomena in most of the organizations. I would not like to quote, but let me give you a few examples. I had once I remember there was a company which had come down to interview. And the quick thing that they said was, it was a group of students, a huge group of students who had applied for that job. So it was basically a finance job. And I remember there were about 150 students. Of course, campus interviews are like this, right? A few jobs come in, and there are a lot of students who go about applying for it. And everybody was trying to figure out, okay, we will have a GD and all of it. But very typical of them, they came up with a concept. They said, okay, I'm going to give you a topic, and you can take about 15 minutes to prepare a very quick presentation. You have to go stand in front of that huge crowd, and you have to give a presentation. And this was very uncalled for. I mean, people did not believe that this is something which I was not prepared, like most of them told, because the typical format said that we had to prepare for a group discussion, we had to go and talk it out. But this was something which is very different. In 15 minutes, they had to sum up, make a very creative presentation, go about presenting. Now what we saw over there was that though there were wonderful orators who were standing on the stage and talking really well, they did not have a content in the PPT. On the parallel way, we saw that there were a lot of people who had brilliant content on the presentation but were not able to talk properly. And somewhere or the other, there were very few of them who had brilliant content, were brilliant in talking, wonderful vocabulary, and the confidence was so high that um, any audience would hesitate to ask questions. So that's where the entire, so that showed a complete preparation of that one candidate who wanted to attend the interview. So there are multiple factors which goes around, preparing yourself when I'm going to go about acing the interview, right? So uh, probably I do not know if my slides are visible. um, yes. All right, so I'm going to take you through the journey of it, of how to go about preparing the resume, what is the relevant skills which the interviewers look into a candidate, and what are the few things that we need to brush up when we talk about it, what are common mistakes that we end up doing while we are going for the interview. Now job search has become very typical, very very phenomenally different altogether in today's time. Lot of factors to it. Specifically, if I talk about this particular year, the recession is high. We have been seeing a lot of news coming up across. The recent news, which I can remember, is about Amazon, laying off thousands of employees from their organization. And when the entire environment is something like this, we do not know where do we stand. At that point of time, it is our responsibility that even if we get the slightest opportunity to go and present ourselves, let us do it, right? And when it comes to campus recruitments, or when it comes to typical job search concept, at that point of time, you have a huge lot of competition. So what we have seen in past is that when there is a lot of them who are appearing for the interview, you tend to lose the confidence when you see so much of competition around you. So how do I ace it up? What is that one good thing that the person would look into me and would give me an opportunity? And I would say a brilliant resume. Now building resumes few years back was a different thing altogether. Resume was used to run into pages, but at this point of time, there are two important concepts which have been going around. One is a video resume, okay, and the other one is a typical one page resume. Now video resume has become very very common. The reason why it is that most of the post covid, these are the changes which has happened after covid, where we have seen that there are a lot of people who do not want to come down traveling, take up an interview. So what they would ask is that, can you send your a video, a short video, where you can present yourself, you can talk about it. At that point of time, what are the few things that they notice about you? How you talk, what's your body language, how your expressions, what is the content, are you reading it, are you talking it out? Many things play a very important role. So video resumes are very very tricky. There are a lot of aspects to it which plays a very very important role. The way you dress up and you present yourself, the way you record it, multiple factors to it. Apart from that, there's a typical resume format, which is a very common phenomena. If in case there is a job opportunity which has been coming on the portal, and they will tell you to upload your one page resume. So there are many things which goes around it, right? Now when I do a resume building, there are few things, some common mistakes which I have seen a lot of them making. Now when students come up with a resume, they end up writing pages and pages. I think that time has gone away where you really need to put a lot of effort in building your resumes into multiple pages. To be honest, as a recruiter, I might not have so much of patience to read through it. I'll give you a very typical example. On an average, if I talk about it, one position in an organization would receive close to 250 resumes for that one position. And imagine if I am a recruiter and if I have to run into pages, probably I would not have the patience to do that. So what can I do to ensure that that one a letter or format could do wonders? It is very typical of a TV ad, which I tell students. Now a television ad, or for that matter any ad, is not more than 20 seconds, 25 seconds. Maximum what I have seen is 30 seconds, and the 30 seconds of ad is enough for any consumer to remember that product. So your resume is in that way. Your resume should be so concise, so compact, with every information that is actually required by the recruiter, which makes wonders. Now, what are the few things that I should be remembering when I am talking about, resumes? Now, resume is a very tricky area again. We have done a lot of things in our in our graduation, in our, if we might have a work ex, we want to put it across. So there are multiple things which you do it, but unfortunately I'm not supposed to put everything across, but I have to ensure. So resume should always have a scope for the interviewer to ask or to questions to you when you come down for the interview. A resume should have gaps wherein there is scope for people to ask you question. That means resume should not be so open that everything is mentioned over there. It does not leave any scope for the recruiter to ask you questions. Right? So resume, basically, one of the first few things which we tell everyone who goes for the interview is that you need to differentiate yourself. How neatly can you do it? You know, and what is the job that you're applying for? What are the few things that you need to take care of? A resume's headline is extremely important. Now you would ask, why headline? The reason why I'm saying this is that you should, in fact, we tell all of them who apply for different jobs. Suppose if I'm a finance person, or if I'm a HR person, I might be applying job for a payroll, or I might be applying for a job for recruitment process. I might be joining a space for performance management. So this comes under the same HR domain, but you have separate concepts around it. So I need to customize my resume based on the job profile that I'm getting. That means a same resume may not work for every kind of job that is given across. Right? That's one of the reasons why you need to tweak your objective or summary whenever you are trying to put the resume based on the kind of jobs that you're applying. Now, one of the most important thing is that you should always use very relevant and important information only. As in I mentioned to you earlier, you should not have a lot of scope for, you should leave scope for your recruiters to ask you questions. One of the mistakes that I have seen in the resume is poor formatting. Now, why do you think formatting plays such an important role? Well, I was happening to, in one of the activities that we were doing in a class, we told a bunch of students to prepare a resume. And one of the distinct things that we saw was the resume did not have a good color combination. The fonts on the top layer was something else, and the below was something else. The size of the font was very, very different. So typical two fonts which should be actually be a part of your resume is font Times New Roman or Arial. These are known to be two professional fonts which you should be using while you're formatting your resume. Right? Try to avoid using boxes in your resume, because that was something which was being done few years back now, and at this point of time those kind of things are not appreciated. Right? At the end of the day, you need to put up certain things which might draw attention of the recruiter. Maybe something that you have really done, like say let's take an example that you led certain projects. You were a part of certain groups where people relied on you. You try to show your leadership skill. You did some interesting internships. You did certain kinds of what to say, dissertations, some projects where you involved or where you were a part of it. All those things play a very, very important role. Right? And as in I mentioned to you, you need to customize your resume based on the kind of jobs that you are applying for. Now, quite a few times I have seen that even if somebody wants to call you, maybe they're not able to reach you because of the wrong contact information or the incomplete contact information which is mentioned over this. You have to be very, very particular that you have this contact information very clearly mentioned, where your email and your phone number is mentioned, and an alternate number is also mentioned, that in case somebody is not able to reach you across, they should be able to and in HR, we basically talk about job description, so somewhere or the other, there are a lot of softwares, there are a lot of these big organizations tend to use a lot of analytics. So I'll give you one quick example. Suppose there is an organization which where you go and you see that there is a post for a particular job. I mean, most of us do that, right? We go and visit multiple portals. Let's take an example that I'm an IT professional. I want to go and apply for a software job. I might go to Oracle. I might go to Accenture, Infosys, multiple organizations, right? And at that point of time, I would be so there would be a format mentioned over there where I need to enter my details. And at the same time, they might ask us to upload a resume through an attachment. Now, do you think that those big companies are going to download all the resumes and going to read through it one by one? Definitely not. So the analytics is majorly used in sorting the resumes. The reason is that this is a very monotonous and requires a lot of effort. So what most of the organizations have started doing is started using analytics, where they tend to pick resumes based on certain keywords. So if I see that there are about thousands of resumes which has come across to me, I would enter few keywords, and based on those keywords my software will sort the resumes. So from 1,000, probably I will be left with, say, about only 100 resumes which might have those keywords. And from those 100 resumes, I might just sort it out based on multiple rounds. I might be stuck to only 10 or 15 or 20 people, and that is the number that I want to look at. Right? So these are the few factors which is extremely important while you're building your resume. At the end of the day, we also suggest a lot of people that you tend to use, a lot of resume testing softwares which are available online, which basically gives you your score. How much of score have you achieved? Based on that, you can improvise your resume. At the same time, we see that there are a lot of softwares available which can be used for you to build your resumes. So that's something which is the first point to crack. I always tell all of them that this is the first step towards getting into the right pace. If your resume has not done wonders, believe me, it is extremely difficult to get even to the second round. So that's something there. So very quickly, if you want to ask me what are the few resume building softwares, there are Resume Worded, there's Kick Resume, Life Career, many such softwares are available online for free. You can go upload a resume, you can see the score, and then you can try to improvise wherever you've got low score. So that is quite helpful whenever you're going for applying jobs. Right? So that's one of the first steps. Let me show you certain samples. I don't know if it's clear to you or not, but let me just run you through. If you could see here, this is just a one page resume. We do not, that one page resume should be enough. So if you see on the top lead, there's a name mentioned over there. There's a summary, okay, work history because she has experience. On the left hand corner, you could see the address, the certain skills, and the education. In India, if you're applying, we would see that a lot of employers are very particular in the percentage. They want to know that whether you have scored above 60, 65, 70. Most of them have got certain criterias. Like I remember DHL, when they came for recruitment, they very clearly asked that we want only those students who have got more than 70% in their in their graduation. They had come for a PG recruitment. And when we were trying to sort it out, we realized that at a class of 45, 50 students, getting 70 is a very high marking, right? And we could only sort about 7 to 8 students. So that is something which is very important. So you do mention the percentage, at least in the Indian context. In foreign organizations, I don't think that's so much of a relevance, but it all depends from organization to organization. So this is a very clear, clean resume which has got all the aspects to it. And of course, this is something which is meant for 1 or 2 or 3 years of work and where you want to go for joining it up. Okay. Now, if I go to the next one, let me show you one more. Now, this is something which is, again, I have taken from Indeed.com. And if you see this, can you see here? I'm not sure if the cursor is visible to you, but name and the contact information, summary of the job, skills, professional experience, education, and awards. Now, this is a very quick, small resume, one-page resume, which gives me enough information. It is not too loaded. It is not too heavy. It is very quick to read. At the same time, I get all the information that I'm requiring to call you for the interview. So that's one of the first thing which I have seen in past. A lot of people end up making mistakes. One of the biggest mistakes, which again I have seen, is that probably in terms of reference check. Now, quite a lot of students or many people ask, do we need to give references? Yes, please add 2 references at the end, because most of the time the organization will go back and check Like in our case, our students give our reference because we will be able to give them, give some references about them, how the student was in their entire journey, etc., etc. So references do play a very important role. At the same time, whenever you are, giving your educational details or any kind of details, please be very, very honest. Do not write any information which is not true. We have seen lot of candidates getting blacklisted because of information which was not true, which was fake, which was not right. Specifically in work experiences, I have worked for 1 year, but I show it for 2 years. In terms of your salary, when you go for the interview, many things are there which might be responsible. So it's always good to be very transparent and giving the right information. So that's something which is about the resume, right? Now I come down to the second step, which is tips for cracking a group discussion. Now I will give you a very classic example. Few years back, there was an organization which had come down for the interview, for the group discussion. And they were a group of, so the entire team, I mean, I think about 150 students had appeared for that group discussion. And close to, so entire group was divided into groups of 12 students each. And that organization had given the topic zero. That was the topic. Now, zero is a very tricky word. Now, zero can be, going in any form. Zero could be zero as a number, zero as what have you done in your career, what have you done in your future, zero as a personality. So, somebody who initiated the discussion probably would have decided how the entire conversation is going around, right? So, many a times it so happens that you should, if possible, you should try to be the one to mold, or to mold the entire conversation towards what you are thinking for. But for that, you have to be completely onto your toes, very, very clear as to what you want to speak. At the same time, you have to be extremely clear that, do I know anything? If you think you're not very competent enough to talk on the topic, it's always good to keep quiet, let others take on, and when you have understood the complete topic, at that point of time, you should be able to speak. But not talking will not give you any kind of advantage. So that's something which is very, very important for group discussion. Another example which I remember had come down was Batman versus Superman. Now, this was out of the world topic. Now, everybody was like shocked as to what is this kind of a topic? And unfortunately, not many students knew about it. Only 3 or 4 of them knew the complete story. So if I am wanting to take a side of Batman, I should completely know about Batman. If I want to take side of Superman, I should be knowing about Superman. And that again is how important, how well read I am, how good I am to talk about. So all those things play a very, very important. So group discussions are something, again, amongst that smaller group, you need to show how much of information do I have about that concept. And let me tell you that all this confidence only comes with thorough reading. Every day spend at least half an hour time in newspaper reading. And the brilliant paper which I always suggest everyone is Economic Times. Initially when you see Economic Times, I remember when we were in college, at that point of time, it was forced on us. Economic Times was given to us. And we used to hate the smell and the color of that pink paper. But at this point of time, when we see a lot of them, and when I go to classes, believe me, I love the smell, the color, the feel of that pink paper, because it has so much of information. If you want to actually increase the vocabulary, please sit with a dictionary. Try to learn 5 new words every day. Out of that 5 new words, at least try one word which you're going to use as a part of your vocabulary. Make it as a habit to keep using those words every now and then, and that is going to make a difference. Because when you talk, you do not know from where you will be able to recall all the things that you have been able to understand. So that's about group discussion. Let me tell you what are the few things that you talk about. Now, I remember, and I always tell, Dalai Lama's very interesting talk on this. When you talk, you're only repeating what you already know. But if you listen, you may learn something new. No, so in one of the GDs, I remember, I think about 3 months back, when I was sitting for a GD, there was a very controversial topic which was given, and suddenly we started seeing that the entire team was fighting with each other, and the fight became so nasty that we did not know whom to stop and whom not to stop. At the end of the day, we had to cut the GD in between and said, "Forget it, it's not happening." Now there are sometimes that you need to be really, really careful. Listening is an art, Not everybody can do that, but at the same time, if you only listen to your entire GD, it is not going to serve the purpose. So you have to be very patient, listen, and when you listen, try to sum up all the words. So there are some interesting tips which because I sit for a lot of GDs, and we get a marking sheet. We tend to sit and mark a lot of things, and we try to see what and how things are. One of the first key important things is the body language. How am I sitting? What is my posture? Am I sitting too relaxed? Is my shirt button very open? Am I not wearing the right? Have I tied my hair neatly? Is my hair well combed? Am I well groomed? All of these factors. What is the kind of shoes that I'm wearing? Am I shaking my leg or my hand every now and then when I'm talking? All those small details play a very important role. We have seen a lot of people going and putting their knuckles, breaking their knuckles, sitting like this, sitting like this, and there are multiple postures which is not appreciated because every posture has got something to say, right? So your body language says how much of confidence that you have within yourself. Apart from that, some observations is be courteous with your fellow speakers. Even if you do not agree with their point, just relax, just be soft and say, my friend, I don't think I agree with you, but I have a different perspective altogether. And that is something which is very important, right? So generally what happens is that candidates don't realize how they become aggressive while they're talking, because you're really angry, you're trying to counter your point, but at the same time the other person is not listening to you, and it becomes very aggressive. So at that point of time, you have to be very courteous while you're talking. That is one of the qualities which we see, or we try to see in GD. Then be confident and keep adding good points. In most of the GDs, what I have seen is that a lot of people repeat the points. So if I don't have anything to say, I will just repeat somebody else's point, which actually does not give you any marks or any point. That basically shows that you do not have any content. You do not know what the topic is all about, or probably you're not very well read to counter that topic. So at the same time, it's extremely important that you make points of all the good notes. Carry a pen and a paper, put all the points across, and whenever you feel relevant, you should be able to add on to it. Yeah, ensure that your words make sense. As in very rightly said, when I'm talking about this, I can always tell you that multiple times we see that um, a lot of them say the same old story. What is something new that you want to add on to the GD? What is that perspective that you want to speak on, right? Don't be afraid to start. I think quite a lot of time we see a very awkward silence. We do not know who's going to start when, and suddenly we see one hand going up, and that person starts on. So that is something what we look in for. Who is the one who wants to initiate certain things? Who is the one who would want to take on? That also shows your competitive spirit, how well I want to go ahead and talk about it. Yeah, so that is something which you need to have, and that also checks your confidence level. But again, I repeat, the underliner is that you should not try all those things if you do not know much about the topic. At that point of time, you should take a second state. But if you think you're very confident, you can be able to move around and completely, at that point of time, it's always a good idea to start. Then use supporting statistics and examples. I think as a recruiter, I am very impressed if somebody comes and tells me, okay, this percentage of this number of people, this percentage, this has happened, that has happened. The GDP has increased to this percent, the recession is this percent, the inflation is at this point of time, these many companies have laid off these many employees. So that shows how well read or how prepared you are, right? So we all know that there's a very interesting concept, the art of storytelling. Now what happens in storytelling is that many a times we see the huge success rate of storytelling. If you want to explain a topic or a concept to anybody, just formulate in the form of story and just tell it across, and that goes straight across to them. So that's something which is extremely important. Participate in mock GDs beforehand. See, going and sitting in a GD will not serve the purpose, because somewhere or the other the confidence is really low. But if I have been continuously participating most of the GDs beforehand, I know what are my good points, what are my bad points. Also, I would suggest you, whenever you're participating in a GD beforehand, please record your sessions. Go back home, watch your session, and see where you have made a mistake. Have you hesitated to talk? Was there somewhere where you were overpowering? Was there somebody else was overpowering you? Were you too soft? Were you too low while you were talking? Because your voice modulation, the way you talk, the volume of your voice, all of them play a very important role when I talk about group discussion. Yeah, brush up your GK, which I've already mentioned to you. Well read. See, there is no substitute for well-read person. There absolutely no substitute. Everything takes place. If I am well-read, my confidence will be high. I would be able to put my points across. At the same time, I will be able to give statistics and examples, right? And if you have not got an opportunity to start, at least try to summarize the key points while you are trying to end, because the start and the end plays a very important role. But let me tell you a disclaimer here. There was a time when you used to get a little extra marks for starting and summarizing, but at this point of time it's become more of a myth. Probably you get more marks if you are very apt to everything. You are able to give a lot of information, you're talking sense, you're talking with statistics, you're talking with confidence. Those kind of things gives you brownie points, right? So this is about the group discussion. And I would like to go on to tell you the final interview. Now let's first look on to what are the few common mistakes that someone does while I'm going for an interview. One of the few common mistakes which I see is arriving late. When I say arriving late, it is something where okay, 9 o'clock is the interview and I pitch in, it's okay, 9:05, 9:10. No, let us understand that it's a very professional world. When I am going in, I have to ensure that I'm at least 15 minutes before my scheduled interview, and that makes a hell lot of a difference. Taking things very casually actually shows that you are not very particular about your timing. I would just tell you some mistakes. At the same time, arriving too early. Now if I come down about say 1 hour early, 1.5 hours early, it actually shows my desperation, right? Okay, why am I here? Why basically it just shows that I'm desperate for the job. I need not show that up, because that is not the thing which I want my recruiters to feel about, right? So there are a few common mistakes. Dressing casually, this is something which I have seen a lot of people, they do not know what kind of dresses you're supposed to wear. Let me run you through the color codes. Though you might find, okay, why colors play a very important role, but yes, colors do play a very important role. Wearing a very lightish cream shirt, a light beige color, a light blue, all of them are very pleasing to the eyes. Dark colors should be avoided when you're going for the interview, because we say in psychology there are multiple factors. Color therapy is very, very important, right? uh, I remember in one of the organizations, there was a psychometric test. So what they actually did was that there were about 200 people who had applied for the job against students, postgraduate students. And they said that, okay, we do not want to go into the elaborate process of job in this group discussion and all of it. All those 150 students were told to write a psychometric test, and the questions were very, very weird. It was a questionnaire of about 30 questions, and what they noticed was the same question was repeated multiple times. Okay. And you won't believe that out of that 150 people who gave that interview and that questionnaire, only about 15 of them got shortlisted for the final interview, and they just had that one interview. And what was the few things that they wanted to see? So when we talk about interview, I think there are two aspects to it. One is IQ and one is called as EQ. IQ is a trend which has been now no more spoken about. If it is, definitely it is there, we do look into it. But emotional intelligence is something that we all talk about. And in emotional intelligence, the most important aspect is about your self-awareness. How self-aware I am. Suppose if I'm short-tempered, what do I do? They might ask you a very typical question: what are your weaknesses? Okay, the first question will come up: I am probably very short-tempered. Okay, how do you tackle your short-temperedness? Being self-aware. I know that these kind of things trigger me, so I would like to move around, or I would like to do something else, or I would like to ignore that fact and keep my calm. There are multiple ways to handle it up. So you do not know how things go across and what are the few things. Okay, now let me run you through the final interview process. One of the first mistakes which we say is not researching the company and the role. You just walk in. That is one of the biggest mistakes that anybody does. So one of the first few things that I would like to say is that research the company thoroughly well, thoroughly well. It is extremely important that you have complete confidence in the organization that you have applied for. If you're not yourself confident, then there are fair chances that you will not be able to, answer their multiple questions. Like I remember one of the organizations very clearly said that when we take you on board, we are going to put you into rigorous training sessions. And after 1 year, we're going to put you as a full timer, right? You are into probation. And after that 1 year, if you realize that the work culture is very stringent for you, not able to sustain you, we will give you additional benefit. Please leave the organization and go away, because after 1 year you do not, we do not appreciate that you still stick on and you crib about it. So what I mean to say is that most of the time when I'm going to apply for the job, I should be knowing about the work culture of that company or that organization. It's extremely important. What is expected out of me? I'm going for a marketing job, but I'm getting a sales job. Is it okay for me to run on field to field? I'm not sure. At that point of time, probably the best way to move around is to not to apply for something and embarrass yourself. So that's something which is about research the company and the role. Keep the conversation fluid and ask questions throughout. Now, question does not mean that it should look like you are interviewing the other person, but you should leave enough room for others to ask you a question, and there should not be much of an awkward moment between you and them where you don't have anything in common. That shows that how creative you are, how quickly you're able to ask questions, grasp things across. But at the same time, you have to ensure that you do not ask questions which are very uncomfortable or many things across. So that is something which is there. So you have to keep the conversation very live, very light. At the same time, in a very nice tone, you should be able to get all the information that you want to know about the organization, right? Now, this is very interesting. How to add value to the company. Now, I would suggest you the art of storytelling. Like one of the questions I remember was, I read it in Forbes, in a magazine long time back. They asked it, how can I build a story around whatever I'm going to see in the interview? And there was a question as to how can you add value to the company. And the interviewee said that, I'm a very creative person, and I am very good with managing productive relationship. He said, can you share any examples that how you have done? And then he said, that in my past organization, the sales of a particular product was going down, and I could see a lot of employees, salespeople leaving the job and going away, and I did not know what was going wrong. So what I did was I called everybody around, sat for a common lunch meeting, and started asking very candidly as to what are the problems that they're facing, which is leading them to leave the organization and go away. And most of them said that the way they were collaborating with the marketing team, the finance team, or for that matter the HR team, things were it was taking a lot of time while collaborating, and that's one of the reasons why it was putting a lot of stress on the employees, sales employees, and that's they were not able to be very productive, because of which they were not able to concentrate on the product, marketing of the product. So what he did was that he went on, sat one on one with the marketing team, the finance team, and he tried to bridge that gap between all of them, ensure that there is seamless process. That he tried to reduce all the problems that were coming across, and that probably released a lot of pressure on the sales employee. And over a period of time, they realized that the attrition had reduced, the production, the marketing or the demand of the product had gone up, because it is always very natural that if an employee is productive, if an employee is motivated, he will be able to give 100% to the organization. And that is actually true, right? So this is nothing but a simple storytelling. So you need to have 4 to 5 stories ready in hand whenever you're going for the interview. Don't at that point of time, maybe something might strike you, something might not strike you, but at that point of time you have to be extremely clear. Okay, these are the 3 stories. Given an opportunity, I would be able to answer these, at least convey these 3 stories to them, right? So be genuinely be prepared for it. Again, I say, display a correct body language, how you sit on a chair, how you put your hands across, how do you talk, what are the ways in which you the posture that you sit. All of them play a very important role. Okay. Now, one of the most important again aspect is show you're excited and genuinely passionate about the opportunity. See, they might be, so it might so happen that your interview turn comes at the last. So what is a typical reaction? that they might be sitting from for the interview from morning, and while it is in the evening at 5 o'clock, it becomes extremely difficult. And you are the last candidate, just imagine. So how do I go about doing it up? What is the way that I would be able to express? Until I am not excited, of course, the recruiter might not be excited to ask you. For them, you might be the last candidate, but for you, that is your moment. That is your moment, because you have been waiting from morning till evening, and it is your turn to show in that 5 minutes or 15 minutes that you have come well prepared. And that's something which I think every recruiter looks for, right? As I mentioned to you, prepare your stories in advance. Don't go and do it up there and then. And there is something which is called as familiarizing yourself with the star method. Now, this has been a very common concept, and we try to tell people, that what is star. Now, there might be multiple questions which have been asked, like, what did you do in this situation? I'm going to share with you some common examples of situations where things have come up. So I will not name the company, but most of the companies nowadays in trend, specifically in management, is that there is a GD and there is a case based questions. That means they'll give you a scenario and they will tell you that you come up with the action and the results. And then at that point of time, you have to apply all your concepts across whatever you have learned in your in your course of your education, and how analytically you are trying to solve the problem, right? So sales are down, there are two products into the market, both of them are equally doing well, and my one product is priced low. What strategy should I use for the other product so that the sales do not fall? Typical situation, ask you to come up with an action with a result. What are the few tasks that you will do to get it into it? So this is something which is there. So you have to be very, very careful, because it's a very common question most of the interviews which it happens, right? Practice, but don't memorize your answers in common interview questions. Like, I remember I was doing a recruitment for some smaller teams, and it was an online recruitment. Of course, now when it's an online recruitment process, we have seen multiple times that what people do is that they open a slide or a projector at the side, and they will read everything. And it is so evident to the recruiter that they know that, even if I'm asking you, can you tell me something about yourself? Now, that something, if somebody reads it, it's very, very embarrassing. It's not something which is in a very good taste, because I just asked you a very basic question. Can you tell me something about yourself? Now, for that also, if you're not confident enough to read, I'm sorry, you're not fit for the job. That's where something which is being very, very clear. Please, you should make your points ready, but ensure that you do not memorize, you do not speak word to word, you do not read anything, because that is something which is not very nicely taken by the interviewers, right? And at the end, I would say follow up with a thank you email after you finish, whether you've been selected, whether you've not been selected, none of it. You need to still show that appreciation for the time they have given to you, for the opportunity. It's not always important that I crack all the interviews that I go across, but every interview is a learning process. Every interview, we try to realize what mistakes we have done, what kind of good things that we have done. Also, remember, everyone, that you know if you talk about me also, many a times I feel I should be going and giving interviews, random interviews, to know what's my market value, where do I stand. Is this something that I have become mundane working in one organization for a very, very long time? Do I have to upgrade my self, my skills? How much of demand do I have in the market? It's extremely important to keep going and doing that every now and then, because that will help you to keep yourself updated, right? So that's about the final interview concept of it. Now I would, few things. No, so this is something which, for which you need to, from the point of view of the interviewer. Now, if I talk about, questions, prepare your questions, because many a times, when we come out from the interview, we say that, oh my god, I missed asking this question, I wish I would have done it. Don't do that mistake. Please put all the points in a piece of paper or a diary or a pen and go along with it. When the entire interview is over, probably it's always interesting and nice to ask certain questions, because that will help you to make decisions whether I want to join that job or not. And don't be hesitant, because it's always a mutual responsibility of the recruiter as well as recruitee to know the kind of cultural fit that I want to have when I'm going and joining a job. Let's take an example what a typical day in is like in this role which I have applied for. What's the vision of the company over the next few years? Do I see a growth pattern when I am joining your organization, or am I stuck at one place? What is the most enjoyable aspects of the job? Do I get opportunity to learn new things? Do I get an opportunity to do training? Do am I given an opportunity to for a decision making? Many things which comes across to it. What is a personal development plan? If so, how it's often reviewed? How frequently I have a performance appraisal? Is it 6 monthly? It is yearly? Whatsoever. What opportunities are there to develop your skill sets? All these factors play an extremely important role when I talk about questions. I have seen students coming after the interview process and say, "Oh my God, I did not ask," specifically after the HR round, "I did not ask how much of salary will I get in hand." And I'm so confused because the salary offer letter has been released, and I'm not sure if how much will I get in hand. So specifically when you're going, so this was the typical technical round which I put questions across. But whenever you're going for the HR round, please do not hesitate to ask what kind of salary benefits am I going to get, how much of leave am I entitled to, what kind of can I get a sabbatical if I want to go and work or for a training program, what kind of personal development or professional development program you have for new joinees, how much days is my probation, what is my recruitment, how many months or years is my probation, and how what is the further process after I become permanent, is there any added benefit to it? So there are so many questions which can be asked, but please remember it should not be looking like that you are only asking them questions and they are not getting an opportunity. So we have to be very clear as to how many questions I need to ask and how many questions I need to keep a pause. It also depends on the comfort level from both the sides, right? The moment you realize that they're not very comfortable answering the question, at that point of time, you should pause. But where you think that they are fair enough, they are open enough to answer most of your questions, please do not hesitate to ask, because those questions which you have asked will help you to make the decisions right and would probably avoid the cultural misfit. Most of the people who leave the organizations, most of them who leave they leave because of the cultural misfit. Always remember, I was expected something else and I was shown something else, and that's one of the reasons why I don't think I'm happy. So it's a waste of the resources by the recruiter as well as by the recruitee. So this is in nutshell about how to go about doing the interview. HR round is a very typical round, and HR round is always at the end, but that is where the real negotiation of the salary and many things happen. But at the end of the organization is really good. My simple advice is that salary should be a second priority, and the work culture and the kind of people which is there, that will help you to grow and learn more. So if you're a fresher, please look at the work culture, the brand, the best employer, and then go and join the organization. If you have certain experiences at that point of time, look at the salary structure. Of course it is important, but more of your growth, which is extremely important for someone, right? So I think with this I end my session, and let me see if I have certain questions across. Oh my God, I have got huge, number of questions, and let me just see. All right. Is there a color scheme we should follow? Not really, but there are a lot of organizations which talks about the therapy. This is something which is called color therapy, and in a lot of brands, we have seen that a lot of organizations tend to use specific colors for their logos, right? You can study more extensively on this, but yes, soothing colors which are very clear to the eyes, soothing to the eyes, are something which most of the recruiters don't find. I remember I had a person coming for the interview who was wearing a maroon shirt with a very jazzy green tie, and that was very typical to the eyes, and it was not looking very great. So it's always good to have those kind of color schemes. What are the most other common mistakes people make in their resume? Well, a lot of mistakes, specifically the formatting, putting if and one of the most important thing which I have seen is that very cluttered resumes, too much of information on that one page. So spacing is not correct, things are not very clear. That point of time, it always gives an impression that the the resume has been very clumsy. So you should always be very neat and clean, give the most appropriate questions, the content, so that it's very nice to read through. Who does not like a very clean, neat and clean, you know um, uh, what to say, write up, all of us like that. So that's something which you need to really be careful on, because resumes are something where you read so many of them, and picking the best resume has to be extremely attractive, right? Is a summary section including key skills required? Yes. If you are if you are trying to, if you have certain key skills which you think your recruiter should know, please mention that in your summary section, because that could be a very interesting keyword for you to be picked up from that multiple resumes that they have received. What if I'm not comfortable with my English skills during the group discussion? Well, I will tell a small story on this. I had a friend of mine who was not very good with his English, but he wanted to join IIM Kolkata. And the biggest problem with him was stammering. And he knew that GD would be one of the fallbacks for him if he could not clear it up. Eventually, he was very, very hardworking, and he had that motive across that how do I go about it. So, of course, after he finished his graduation, he was working for 2 years, and his office was about 1 hour away from the entire, uh, from his house. And that 1 hour morning when he used to go, he used to take flashcards. In flashcards, he used to, identify certain words, and while coming back, he used to memorize those words and try to use it in the vocabulary. I would not say English is extremely important, but a good communication skill is extremely important. What happens is that when 20-25 students are sitting across at that point of time, your communication plays a very important role. So even if your English is not very good, but your content has to be brilliant, and maybe you speak a little less, but at least with less of grammatical errors, and that could do much wonders. Because what I have seen is that many a times, since I'm not comfortable with the language, I don't tend to speak. I lose my confidence because everybody is talking so much that I do not know where to stand. So somewhere or the other, you need to brush up, and talk more and more in that language. But your content and well-read mm, content in the GD will play wonders for you, right? Okay. What is the primary thing recruiters are looking for in a candidate during GD? Confidence. Number one, confidence. How confident I am. And number two, am I making sense? I think these two most important things that when I sit for a GD, I look for. I have seen multiple times that many of them will keep repeating the same thing every now and then. No, that's not the way. What we actually say is whether you're confident, and there's a very, very thin line between confidence and overconfidence. The moment I realize that you're overconfident, I might not take you, because you can attitude is one of the biggest disasters in a new recruitee. And most of us have a lot of issues when we do not have the right people with the right attitude. So that's something which you need to keep in mind. Be confident, make sense when you talk, be soft, don't be aggressive. The moment you are aggressive, that makes a hell lot of a difference, right? What should I keep in mind while telling a story about myself? Talk positive stories. Don't give an opportunity for the recruiter to assume anything negative. Whenever you are telling a story, try to tell something which is extremely brilliant, which shows some skill sets of yours, somewhere your behavioral aspect, how you've been able to tackle the entire session or the situation, and that will do wonders for you. So that's something which is extremely important. So you can actually go back, do reflection exercise, try to find out what are the few things that I have done in my life, somewhere which showed my leadership qualities, somewhere where I showed my resilience, somewhere the way I tackled the issue, multiple things which plays a very, very important role. Now, body language is a very vast topic. Actually, there are actually courses, content, please read it more about it. Some body languages which I have seen, and let me just share with you. Breaking a knuckles is a wrong body language. Okay. Shaking your legs while sitting is a wrong body language. Sitting like this is a wrong body language. Sitting upright is a good body language. Looking eye into eye is a good body language, but not staring. I mean, there's a way out of looking into eye into eye. So there are multiple factors which play a very important role in body language. And let me tell you, body language is something which is extremely important. As a um, as a faculty, I have seen so many students, and I will tell you, with my experience of being in this industry for so many years, even looking at one student for a fraction of second, I can tell how is his attitude, the way he walks, the way he talks, the way he sits, everything is visible in that 30 seconds. So body language is extremely important. Okay. How do I build my confidence over an interview? Practice. Go and stand in front of the mirror and talk. Whenever you tell people to do mock interviews, when you do the mock interviews, record the sessions, see the session and find out what mistakes you have done. Have you stammered anywhere? Have you repeated the same word multiple times? Have you the body language is not correct? Have you spoken too much? Have you spoken too fast? Were you too slow? What was the pace of talking? Were you too low? Were you too loud? All of these things are extremely important. When you are well prepared, automatically confidence will come. I believe that the confidence only may go haywire when I myself is not confident. What am I speaking? But if you're very well prepared, you've read everything across, you know how it is, those are the things which plays a very important role. Right? Is it important to ask questions in the interview portion? Definitely not. Definitely not important. The reason is that we always suggest to ask questions. Why? Because many times we feel that quite a lot of us repent, okay, why did I not ask this question? I wish I would have asked, so that it would have been helpful for me to take that decision, whether I'm at the right place or not. So there's no harm in asking questions. It is your way of doing it up. But we suggest at least one or two questions, because that will give you complete clarity um, um, whether this job is fit for me or not. Right? So up to you. If you think that you do not want to ask questions and all the question and answer has been actually been given by them, by themselves, without you asking, you did not ask questions. But wherever you have an iota of feeling that I wish I would have asked this, please make those points. Of course, based on the situation, based on the environment, based on the interviewers, you can take a call whether I should be asking questions or not. So I think that's up from all the. I hope I have done justice by answering all the questions. And I think this was a timeline that was given to me. And thank you so much for giving me this opportunity. It's always a pleasure to come back to this crowd and speak and talk to them and share the experiences. Thank you so much for everything which this platform has given to me. Thank you once again.